Hello, Internet. Welcome to another episode of the Rotoworld Football Podcast. My name is Josh Norris here, joined by Ian Hartitz and John Daigle. Gentlemen, beautiful people, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Great day to talk some ball, Josh. I'm pumped.
I mean, we're back. Guys, we're back. It's week one of the NFL season. We have some new East Coasters here joining us as well. Have you bought your Nantucket red pants yet?
What are Nantucket red pants?
Beautiful. That's a great start. Have you driven 20 miles per hour under the speed limit when it's rained so far?
I have frustratingly drove in the rain on the East Coast. And let me tell you, it's just that, frustrating.
Have you, Ian Hartitz, left a shopping cart in the middle of a parking lot yet?
Not yet, so I might do this.
I'm kind of going through like the Connecticut checklist right now. Are you paying way too much for rent?
That I can totally agree with,
Okay,
yes.
Good. We're off to a great start. Okay, like we said, this is week one of the NFL season. We have a podcast today. We have a podcast tomorrow. Tomorrow's will be with Roto Pat, Nick Minzio Pat on rankings, Nick Minzio and Start Sit. Before we get started here with today's episode, which we're going to go through every single game, all 16 games of the weekend, I did want to go through the schedule, what we're going to have each and every week. Starting off with the Sunday show, noon Eastern, like it's been for the last few years on NBC Sports' YouTube page. We'll take you up until kickoff, basically try to get you to have your optimal lineup each and every week. Lots of start and sit questions. Then a new podcast on Monday mornings. It's for your commute, game by game with the Blurbers. So I'll be calling you, Ian. I'll be calling you, Daigle, Sunday night. I'm sure you can't wait for it. But again, every single game from the weekend covered in time for your Monday commute. We'll also have that Tuesday morning show, news and waivers. Thursday morning, news, start sits, and injuries. And then wrap it up that week, each and every week, with the Friday morning rankings, matchups, game previews, all that good stuff.
And there's your schedule. I'm already tired just listening to it. There's your schedule.
And we haven't even started. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this weekend's games. We should start off with that Thursday night game, which is on NBC Sports, I might add. Green Bay at Chicago, 3-point favorites. The Packers are at home. I want to bring this up. Since the NFL started week one on Thursday nights in 2002, home teams have a 14-2 overall win record. Wow. Can the Bears do that, Ian Hartitz, in week one against the Packers?
I think they can. There's been a lot made of the Vic Fangio leaving, obviously, and they should have made a lot about this. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, if not the best. But at the same time, the talent level on this defense is still just overwhelming. And you got guys, Roquan Smith, top 10 pick from last year, who still have room to grow. You know, I know losing Adrian Amos, Bryce Callahan, it's not ideal, but there's still just so much talent at all three levels of this defense. I think they're still going to be the same dominant group they were last season. I think they get this week one W.
And we're not going to know it in the short term, but the issue is turnovers are not sticky. They don't transition from year to year. So that's why we expect regression despite stacked talent on that defense. So how they perform will be interesting, but really, I'm interested in the offense. We get to see David Montgomery, finally.
And not since the first preseason game, I believe, when he looked great against the Carolina Panthers just on a handful of touches.
One jump cut moved his ADP like 4 rounds.
But we haven't even mentioned the Packers on the other end of this, a team that doesn't make a lot of changes year over year. And now we have a new offensive coordinator, play caller, head coach in Matt LaFleur. Questions about audibles about 25 times this offseason. I'm very interested to see what it's going to be like with Aaron Rodgers working under Matt LaFleur, a play caller who really, and I brought it up 100 times this offseason, now first time in the regular season, had no identity until about week 12 of the 2018 season with the Tennessee Titans.
I'm hoping it took him that long to figure out to give the ball to Derrick Henry. Please, just give the ball to Aaron Jones starting in week one. I know he's talked about committees. They're going to use Jamal Williams at some point, but let's face it, every backfield outside of maybe 5 in the league use a committee at some point. So I'm really interested to see if Aaron Jones is going to have a 70-30 split or something more like a 50-50.
It doesn't help that the rookie Dexter Williams looked extremely poor in the zone run scheme in the preseason. So that probably lands Jamal Williams as the backup. But again, we've seen Jamal Williams be a backup. So hopefully it's Aaron Jones. Hopefully.
And there are still players that can take that next step on both rosters. I mean, Mitch Trubisky can still do it at the quarterback position on the Bears. But at wide receiver on the Packers, I think a lot of us are expecting Marquez Valdes-Scantling to make that big jump in year 2 as a late round rookie last year. And adding him to Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, maybe something at tight end with Aaron Jones at running back. There's a lot of skill position players there for the Packers to take advantage of.
Allison's the curious one, especially in the slot in Matt LaFleur's offense. So that's the one I'm really looking forward to. But as you said, second-year jump for Valdes-Scantling, clearly in view as well.
And I know a lot of people took Allison and MVS quite early on. This probably isn't the week to play them, though. And we'll get into this as we go along this week, but Bears, first week, Thursday night, probably not the right time to play those mid-round wide receivers for you.
I agree. I'm just curious to see what this offense looks like overall because, like you said, it's the same personnel back. We're just relying on Matt LaFleur's scheme, which, based on what we saw in Tennessee last year, wasn't the most groundbreaking thing ever. So we'll see what they look like.
Let's go to the Sunday games, starting off in the 1 o'clock hour Eastern time, gentlemen. Eastern time. Kansas City at Jacksonville. A 52 over-under. Kansas City on the road, favored by just 3.5. Kansas City's defense, I would argue, held them back at times last season. I think that's very fair to say. But then on the other side of the field, Jacksonville's offense now has a new quarterback. No longer Blake Bortles. It's Nick Foles.
Yes, it is Nick Foles. And no one will say this, but I'm actually very excited to watch Nick Foles and Leonard Fournette play.
Really?
Like, this matchup in particular, what is the highest total on the board right now, I don't expect it in that way. One of these games, which we'll talk about in a bit, I expect to jump over that later this week. But this matchup for the Jaguars, new offense. Just getting center Brandon Leonard back, getting left guard Andrew Norris back. Now we're talking about Chiefs who finished, I believe, 30th in Football Outsiders rush DVOA last season. 32nd, dead last. Okay, now we have Leonard Fournette, who was in on 18 of Nick Foles' 19 first-team snaps in the preseason, who played all 4 third downs. Like, he is an every down back, and people haven't caught on yet. This is the rejuvenation game right here for Leonard Fournette until he's out week 2.
It's a massive smash spot. I mean, look, I took the offensive line's adjusted line yards and the defensive line's adjusted line yards, every matchup, combined them to see where are the best mismatches. This is number 3 for Leonard Fournette behind only Chris Carson and Todd Gurley. So truly, everything's lining up for Chris Carson. And also, everything's lining up for Leonard Fournette. And also, what did we see in the preseason in those Nick Foles snaps? They got him involved as a receiver. Look, he's not Le'Veon Bell. He's not going to go line up in the slot and undress a safety in the open field. But you get him the ball on screens, watch him get downhill in a hurry and make some dudes hit the ground.
Okay, a lot happened this past weekend, and we'll hit on more news tomorrow as well. But LaShawn McCoy has now been added to this backfield in Kansas City. Kansas City, an offseason where they called Damian Williams the bell cow feature back all offseason. It kind of was dictated that way in preseason now. Who knows with LaShawn McCoy in the fold? Daigle, how are you approaching this running back position? Because I have quite a number of shares of Damian Williams from drafts this offseason.
The issue isn't the shares of Damian Williams we all may or may not have. It's the fact that everyone has now been stubborn to the fact that LaShawn McCoy is going to step in and literally share the first down role.
Exactly.
He's going to split early down usage with Damian Williams, which is unfortunate. But as someone who has prospered and is familiar with Andy Reid's system, you know, he was very, very bad last year. And I don't even attribute that to Buffalo's offensive line in general. Like, I think it was just he's aging and he's declining.
Interesting.
But I think he's going to come out, and I actually sort of think he'll be good in this offense. Like, it helps that he's married to the best offense in the league. That alone bumps him up.
That's the most important point, right?
Yes.
Because for running backs, it's yards created for them by offensive lines and positive and neutral game scripts. He's improving both of those versus what he had with the Bills last year.
And too many people, not to cut you off here, but too many people are saying, like, oh, well, we noticed, like, he wasn't good last year. It doesn't matter what we noticed. It matters what Andy Reid notices.
For sure.
And Andy Reid may have not noticed that LaShawn McCoy was declining last year.
We should mention, though, Shady was a lot better in games where Josh Allen wasn't that quarterback. I mean, if you could pick a quarterback, usually dual threat quarterbacks are better for running backs because they kind of open up the lanes more on zone reads, but that's not who Josh Allen is. Josh Allen is a scrambler and who does not check down, and that was like the worst case scenario from both accounts for Shady. So, like you said, though, all that matters is what Andy Reid thinks, and he apparently still likes him.
We started this discussion with the Bears and their great defense. We know Jacksonville's defense had that 2 seasons ago. I am interested to see how much of a bump up Nick Foles does give them over Blake Bortles. Let's go to the next game. Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings. All we heard this offseason with the Vikings was Gary Kubiak's new presence. Zone blocking, zone blocking, zone blocking. Falcons defense coming off a lot of injuries in 2018. Do we think that Gary Kubiak instantly helps this rushing game for the Minnesota Vikings? Because it's all that Mike Zimmer wants in the world.
Absolutely, but I mean, we've known he can play any running back against the Falcons and just rack up fantasy points for years. I mean, they've allowed the most receptions to running back position during the entire Dan Quinn era. The question for me, though, is what can Stephon Diggs do in this spot? Because Falcons cornerbacks also, I mean, haven't been exactly world beaters over the years. And one thing we've seen from Stephon Diggs, especially early in the season and especially in domes, when he's right, very few people on this planet can guard him. So I'm expecting a big smash spot for him.
This game is indoors, but with Atlanta's defense basically back to full health, I am curious if this pace is going to be much slower than we think, especially because I know a lot of people have mentioned Dirk Cutter's offense. Like, I do wonder if it's actually scaled back and giving the concerted effort the front office put towards improving Atlanta's offensive line, if they actually are going to lean on Devonta Freeman and whatever the hell that backup committee is, like a 3-man backfield.
And it's a gross backfield as well. I mean, it's interesting you say that as a slow approach possibly because it's one of the highest totals of the weekend at 47.5.
Yeah.
Again, the Vikings are favored by 4 at home. I think we all kind of know what the Falcons' offense is, though. Like, if Devontae stays healthy, we know that they have good 2 outside receivers and Calvin Ridley who can play in the slot as well, and Julio Jones, and then Matt Ryan is Matt Ryan. I am happy to see that Caleb McGarry, one of the first-round picks, is back healthy. So it is important to understand that like the emphasis was put on the offensive line for both teams, and maybe it held them back, and we know it did in the passing game for the Vikings last season.
I think one thing we should note too is Julio Jones could smash here. I mean, he's going to be shadowed by Xavier Rhodes, but look, 2018 Xavier Rhodes was not the same guy we saw in 2016 and 2017. He ranked outside the top 30 corners, yards allowed per cover snap, quarterback rating when targeted. He just wasn't the same guy. And look, he is that bigger athletic cornerback that could give Julio troubles in the past, and you know, we have seen him play well when he's on, but I don't know, man. Julio on the road, he's a beast. That's
why I take corner matchups with a grain of salt. Like, they are important, but also I believe people overrate them. Because, like, when you have Tyreek Hill or Julio Jones matched up, like, who cares? They're still Tyreek Hill and Julio Jones. Like,
Fair.
One catch and they break all expectations from them.
And you're going to play Dalvin Cook no matter what, but we know that the Falcons allow so many receptions to running backs because they love to allow quarterbacks just to dump off those passes, pick up 1, 2, 3, or 4 yards, and then tackle them immediately in the open field.
What do you think, and we can make this quick, what do you think is Alexander Madison's role week 1?
Latavius Murray. I truly do, and I
genuinely think he has standalone value.
I think in every single draft, no matter who I was facing, best ball, standard, whatever, I have left with Alexander Madison because I am a crazy person and go back and watch every single post-draft press conference, and they said talent-wise, Alexander Madison is Latavius Murray, and I think that they still want that role, and there's going to be even more volume from the running backs this year. I think he still has a goal line, goal-to-go situational role this year, starting off as a rookie.
And that's actually what Jay Glazer wrote when he left Vikings camp. That only the coaching staff was raving about Madison.
Who knows? Next time I'll shave my head. Okay, let's next go to the Tennessee Titans versus the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland favored by 5.5 at home. A few years ago, not an exciting matchup. Now, so much hype, so much excitement about the Browns. It's a nice opening opponent for a team with plenty of expectations, isn't it, Ian?
It is, but look, we've gotten hype all week about this Browns D-line against a banged-up Titans offensive line for good reason. But look on the other side of that ball. This Browns offensive line might be just as bad as their D-line is good. They literally released their left tackle, Greg Robinson, only to re-sign him the next day. But who does that?
And we've never heard of that before.
Right.
Have we? Like, this is a new way of constructing your roster and changing it right before. And they didn't change it at all, but it shows you how much they value Greg Robinson's talent, because obviously they probably signed him back for cheaper money, but he's just not that good of a player. They understand that. He was still promised a starting job. But again, this is a transaction we've just never seen 3 years ago.
It's not just Greg Robinson either. Like, they're defiantly starting Eric Kush at right guard. They just traded for Wyatt Teller from Buffalo, and they don't want to start Kush. It has been made clear. Like, even they said once Teller catches the speed, which is going to be week 2, Kush is basically going to be out of the lineup. So I am concerned because if there is any strength in the Titans personnel, it is their defensive, the front 7.
Taylor Lewan missing this game, so we have Dennis Kelly at left tackle. We have Jack Conklin at right tackle, who's kind of been up and down lately. We know Roger Saffold was signed as the left guard. Again, it's an emphasis to build up this Titans offensive line. But Ian, you mentioned it. They're going against Olivier Vernon. They're going against Myles Garrett. They're going against Larry Ogunjobi. This could be a team that hasn't shown a lot of consistency offensively in the preseason. Again, that's just preseason football. I think the Browns defense takes a major step up this year because the talent is there. The results just have to be there as well.
This is a really bad spot for Derrick Henry, being on the road and having this disadvantage at the line of scrimmage. And look, even last year when he won all you people fantasy championships, he still wasn't every down running back. I mean, in those last 5 weeks, he played 41%, 40%, 70%, 62%, and 53% snaps.
Wow.
I mean, Deion Lewis was still heavily involved, and I think he will be again this year.
What do you think, both of you, how many touches do you think Derrick Henry gets in this game? Because he was drafted early, running back 18, 19, 20. He's the running back 2 in a lot of people's fantasy rosters, so they want to start him. You can't avoid him in week 1, can you? Like, can you take a step back already from your draft because of the matchup and not play Derrick Henry?
He is a fringe running back 2, in my opinion, flex option, and I think he will be more involved in the passing game, just not in this game because the game script is awful. Like, especially because not only, as you mentioned, his matchup, but also Denzel Ward basically shutting down Corey Davis on the outside. It's going to be literally Adam Humphries, 12 catches for 22 yards, and that's going to be their offense. There are a lot of trap games on this board this week.
Yeah.
This is not one of them.
Over under 17.5 touches for Derrick Henry this
It's a
week.
good line. I'll take the under, though.
Okay.
Take the under.
Let's go to the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. Jets favored by 3 in this one, just a 40-point total. Not sure how this has happened. I actually think Buffalo's defense is one of the more underrated units across the league. And they're not even being drafted in every single fantasy draft. Obviously, they start on the road as well. But they are going against a team that maybe generated the most optimism throughout the preseason than any other team, and that's the Sam Darnold, Adam Gase-led offense that actually played with tempo and pace and excitement.
This defense is amazing. It's because of Tre'Davious White, who's their linchpin at corner. I think he needs to be on anyone's list of a top 5 cornerback in the league right now. Last season, number 1 in fewest fantasy points allowed per cover snap, and the secondary as a whole doesn't have a loose part. I mean, only the Jaguars, Colts, Vikings, and Bills allowed fewer than 30 DraftKings points per game in the wide receiver position. I'm not touching any of these Jets wide receivers.
Wow. Do you think, Daigle, that the Jets' offense was mirage, or there was some realism to it based on the preseason?
They are genuinely frisky. They're an underrated Super Bowl bet,
Same.
honestly, to a lot of people, me as well. So I think if there is one receiver that prospers in this matchup, it's Jamison Crowder in the slot, because that's where you can attack them on the interior.
Got it.
Having said that, it's still weird because on the other side of the ball, Buffalo's defense is Jets defense. I got that right the first time. Shouldn't doubt myself. Jets defense is a good streaming play. You can pick them up their waiver wire because you're going to get cheap sacks against Josh Allen rushing. But at the same time, they genuinely carry out like the worst set of corners you've ever seen. And given the speed of John Brown, who was only held back due to his usage once Lamar Jackson got under center. Look, John Brown was the wide receiver 22 in fantasy last season while Joe Flacco was under center because they used him properly over the top of secondaries. Josh Allen, as we know, only goes over the top of secondaries.
Right.
So there is some frisky, I'm just going to use that word a lot now. There's
Just
some
with the Bills.
Frisky breakout potential for John Brown, who's still on waiver wires, by the way. And he needs to get picked up before these upcoming weeks.
I'm fascinated to see the development of Josh Allen, if there has been any, because we know that the rushing upside and production cannot sustain itself because it was all unscrambles, over 11 yards per scramble last year. I'm interested to see Brian Dable's offense with a full offseason as Josh Allen as the quarterback. And I'm also excited to see Devin Singletary a little bit, someone who obviously was not a great athlete coming out of FAU, but has most likely 10 touches in his back pocket in his first start in the NFL.
The only problem is we got TJ Yeldon probably taking a lot of that pass down work, and then, the inconvenient truth, Frank Gore is always going to be there for more touches.
I was about to say, I need to see odds, but I would think Frank Gore still leads his backfield in carries.
Let's next go to the Baltimore Ravens at the Miami Dolphins on the road. Baltimore, 6.5-point favorites with a small, tiny little total of 37.5 points. They're the biggest road favorites of the weekend. Look, I think so much of the offseason and talking points have been, can't wait to see this Arizona Cardinals offense. Personally, I can't wait to see this Lamar Jackson-led Baltimore Ravens offense.
That's fair. The one thing I'm worried about is Mark Ingram is not going to have this featured role that everyone thinks he is.
Really?
Look at the last 6 weeks of last season. It wasn't like Gus Edwards was this featured guy. He didn't even play 50% snaps in any of their final 6 games. Kenneth Dixon was at 20 to 50% in those games. Ty Montgomery was playing 18 to 30% in those games. So it's going to be a committee. Gus Edwards is still capable. And then, look, we all love Justice Hill here after watching what he did in the preseason. He's going to have a week 1 role.
And they were raving about Justice Hill even before he took the field in the preseason. They said he's legitimately a game changer who can run both inside and outside. He's going to have a role in week 1. It's going to be a 2-headed timeshare most likely, especially with Gus Edwards on a 1-year $500K deal. It's not really a contract that matters. I think he'll get phased out rather quickly. The whole thing here is, can Miami compete genuinely, especially at home?
Yeah.
And we've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick, who can post dumbfounding numbers despite what it says on paper for his matchup. It's just truly a matter of they are tanking from the inside out, and that offensive line is just by far the worst in the league.
Yeah, let me read that offensive line to you. It's Julian Davenport, who they just traded for, literally just traded for, who wasn't good with the Houston Texans at left tackle. Michael Dieter probably at left guard, Daniel Kilgore at center, Deion Calhoun at right guard, and Jesse Davis at right tackle. The delayed tank was on. You know, it's something we'd all talked about during the draft and right afterwards, but it really didn't happen until the last week. Can you say one nice thing about the Dolphins, Daigle?
That they used to have Laramie Tunsil.
Hey,
That's the one.
they have a good secondary, all right?
Okay.
Xavier Howard's a
okay.
legit number one corner. Mika Fitzpatrick's a baller. And they brought in Eric Rowe, who at least is familiar with their New England system they're putting in. I see that as the only path to victory for Miami. If they can just lock up whatever the Ravens' new passing, quote-unquote, attack is going to be, load up the line of scrimmage, maybe they can make it an ugly game and get the victory.
It's almost a waste for Xavier Howard in this game, though, because he's just going to cover Miles Boykin on the outside.
Right.
And who I love, who Josh Norris supposedly loves more than me, but who obviously struggled, caught 5 of 14 targets in the preseason. A few rookie mistakes, but still sealing plays that you could see pop on the screen. But it's just given the rushing attack, I am really concerned for Miami this week.
There's no supposedly about it.
Yes.
I'm just letting you know. Okay, next up is the Washington Redskins on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles at home. Eagles, 9.5 point favorites, total of 46 points. Eagles, I'll keep it simple, might have the best two-deep roster in the NFL versus the Washington Redskins, who maybe the first time in a long time, their defense is more exciting than their offense.
And the thing about the Eagles, the two deep that you're talking about, I feel like we usually touch on their wide receiver depth, their tight end depth. Look at this defensive line, though. They keep reloading it year after year after year. Graham, Barnett, Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, Timmy Jernigan. All these guys would be probably the number one defensive lineman on a lot of teams in the NFL. And, we got confirmation earlier this week that Fletcher Cox will be playing Sunday. And that's a problem against an offensive line that still does not have Trent Williams.
36-year-old Donald Penn starting at left tackle. Incumbent bust Eric Flowers moving to the interior and starting at left guard, facing that line against Case Keenum, who, as we have tweeted throughout the week, whose passer. Let's get this right. Here we go. Case Keenum under pressure, 16.7% completion rate last year. A disaster. He's not going to stay upright. It's going to be a mess. I'm not concerned for the Eagles at all.
But you're not starting a single Washington Redskin. And I don't have any shares of Darius Geis, even though I really like Darius Geis as a player. And it's because if we go back 365 days ago, even less than that, in the 2018 season, the way and the reason Adrian Peterson got fantasy points is because somehow they were able to keep close and positive game script with Alex Smith at quarterback, and so Adrian Peterson balled out in those games. When they were behind in matchups, he'd scored 0 points. We don't expect them as, again, 9.5 point dogs against maybe the best team in the NFL, I'll say it. Darius Geis is not startable this week to me.
No, I'm with you there. I'm focusing on this Eagles offense that should be back in their 2017 form with the presence of Deshaun Jackson.
Love it.
Guys. Look, he's dealing with the broken finger. We'll know more about that as the week goes on, but can't overstate how huge this is for Carson Wentz. He was a top 12 quarterback in yards per attempt and quarterback rating on deep passes in 2017. Fell to below average, 17th and 30th last season once Mike Wallace and Matt Collins got hurt. When you add that type of field-stretching talent, it opens up everything for guys like Alshon and Ertz, and the entire offense is going to be great.
And Carson Wentz, 8 yards an attempt last year from 12 personnel. And on final cut day, the Eagles cut every tight end except Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. So I would assume we see a league-high personnel from 12 starting this week.
Just to close it on this game, we finally get to see Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders running together, how that usage is going to happen. Do you expect Jordan Howard to see more carries, more touches, or can we expect maybe 12.5 over-under for Miles Sanders in his debut for the Eagles?
I think Sanders will get the most touches. What I'm worried about, though, is one of Sproles or Clement being annoyingly involved in passing downs.
Sproles will definitely be involved in third down, I would think. But if the Eagles take a 10-point lead into the second half, I would imagine it's still a Miles Sanders hammer, over Jordan Howard. Yeah,
nice. Because
I think he closes it out.
We know that Jordan Howard had that role last year as the closer for the Bears because they were up in so many late third and fourth quarters that he was able to nab a bunch of his production in that area. So if Miles Sanders gets that role over Jordan Howard again on one of the best teams, man, he's a running back too at the very least for the rest of the season.
It's going to be interesting to watch.
Let's keep it going with the Los Angeles Rams away at the Carolina Panthers. Rams were actually 3-point favorites, almost a 51 total here. Have we forgotten how good the Rams are? I kind of feel like it.
I think so, man. We had to watch that offense sputter for the last 5 games of sputter. They were still running the ball over everyone, but at least the passing game wasn't what it was. But we got to put some respect on Jared Goff's name. I mean, only Mahomes and Breeze have averaged more adjusted yards per attempt than Jared Goff over the last 2 seasons.
There are major concerns as to why I'm not as excited for this game because it's just question marks everywhere.
It is.
The Rams' offensive line, which has basically been remade over the offseason, just one giant question mark. Then we have Cooper Kupp coming back from a torn ACL. Question mark. We have Robert Woods moving back outside since he played the slot for Cooper Kupp last year. Question mark, especially with Brandon Cook still involved. How is Darrell Henderson going to be involved and affect my bank account? Question mark. And then obviously Cam Newton's shoulder and lingering injury from the preseason. So it's going to be a lot to watch in this game.
You mentioned the offensive line, and I've talked about it 100 times. This will be the 101st. I mean, new left guard in Joseph Noteboom, new center in Brian Allen. Then you have Austin Blythe at right guard, who I think was a liability down the stretch last year, and especially in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. I cannot stress enough how much offensive line play create a perfect situation for Todd Gurley, create a perfect situation for Jared Goff, who might make a play here or there against pressure. You can point those out. But one, the volume of those snaps is very low. And two, he's just not good against pressure. Like, his mobility is just not there to create outside of structure like some of these other quarterbacks. Maybe he's taking the next step. He's still super young. But the key here, and it's an obvious one, but the key here is the Panthers to create disruption in their new quote-unquote 3-4 front with Jared McCoy joining Don Terry Poe and K'Wan Short and some blitzes with Brian Burns and Mario Addison on the outside. Disrupting that pocket and disrupting the situation of Jared Goff is absolutely vital for the Panthers here.
Actually,
Yeah, 100%. And I just want to look on the Carolina side of the ball real quick because you mentioned Cam's shoulder problems. The good thing, and ankle problems at this point, but he doesn't need to be the Superman Cam that we've grown used to seeing over the years. He's got DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, guys that can turn these 5-yard passes into big gains. And, we should mention DJ Moore. Cam has averaged 9.67 adjusted yards per attempt when targeting DJ Moore. His next closest receiver of his career is all the way down at 8 yards. So truly, I know Curtis and DJ kind of had similar target share at the end of the season, but DJ Moore is special.
DJ Moore is special, and I still think, despite what Josh says, he's the number one receiver on this team. But I will say all the lingering injuries affect DJ Moore more than Curtis Samuel's shallow A-dot, like over the middle and in the flats. And same goes for McCaffrey. McCaffrey's safe no matter what.
Yeah.
But I would think Samuel, it's easier for him to prosper as opposed to Moore if Newton is still injured.
And just like we've forgotten, I think, how good the Rams are, and I mean, they still have the best player in football in Aaron Donald. We forgot how good Cam Newton was before that really shoulder collapse against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just how he was in sync with Norv Turner, getting the football out quickly, can really line up and do well against this
He was
Rams
the quarterback
defense.
3,
Yeah.
all injured last season before getting shut down for those final few weeks.
Sunday, 4 o'clock games. Let's start off with the Indianapolis Colts at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are without Derwin James. Colts are without Andrew Luck. I wonder which is going to be more impactful here, but I am fascinated to see how different the Colts offense will be with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback versus when he was at quarterback in 2017, because there's a difference, big one, between Rob Jasinski and Frank Reich.
And not only that, I mean, we're looking at Devin Funchess, Eric Ebron, Paris Campbell. The entire offensive line pretty much is just on a whole different plane now. It's going to be a completely different offense, and I think this could be a sneaky shootout. This has the second highest combined neutral pace rank of the week, only behind, I think, Pittsburgh and New England. Like, both these offenses, I think, can score with Frank Reich, like you're saying. I'm expecting bigger things from Jacoby Brissett than most.
The only reason I wouldn't declare it would be a shootout is because of the Chargers' offensive line. Forrest Lamp is going to rotate in at guard at both positions, but they're starting Dan Feeney at left guard.
Trent Scott at left tackle.
And Trent Scott at left tackle. I mean, it's genuinely a bottom line in the league.
It is.
And against the Colts pass rush, that's absolutely concerning. The thing is, though, I think Philip Rivers especially is smart enough to then leverage that into more targets for Austin Eckler, who's extremely efficient out of the backfield, and to more targets for Hunter Henry. And Keenan Allen already runs shallow routes, so that's going to adapt quickly.
And because it's not really truly a home field advantage for the Chargers ever when they play at home,
Right.
I think this is my upset pick of the week. I really do, because I think we are underrating how good Jacoby Brissett can be in this offense with an offensive line that can hold up in the pocket versus how good this Indianapolis Colts defense might be versus how poorly the Chargers offensive line is. It would not surprise me at all to see the Colts cover that 6.5 and even win this game on the road.
Everyone looks to Jacoby Brissett's splits from his past time as Colts starter.
You can't.
The difference is Frank Reich, and that literally makes the difference in this game because they threw at at the league high rate of on first down, which then allows you to skip third downs and avoid those extra long third down situations and keep the ball moving.
Cincinnati at Seattle is next up in the 4 o'clock window. Seattle's 9.5-point home favorites, total of 44 in this game. Hey, Ian, Seattle just added this guy over the weekend. His name is Jadeveon Clowney. They needed a pass rusher. I think this might help them come Sunday.
We're talking about terrible offensive lines. Look at this Bengals group.
It's atrocious.
I mean, all right, just their 2018 starters. We had Cordy Glenn. He's in the concussion protocol. Clint Bowling is retired. Billy Price lost his job. Alex Redmond is suspended. And Bobby Hart was PFF's number 55 offensive tackle out of 62 qualified
And Christian
players.
Westerman walked away.
Train wreck.
Yes. Absolute train wreck.
It's real bad. And one, we also don't know what the Cincinnati offense looks like. I mean, we think we hopefully do, in some Rams sprinkles and tendencies possibly. We like a lot of those skill position players, though. Like, we like Tyler Boyd. We like Joe Mixon.
We like their coach, too.
We like their coach. But it could completely crumble with this defense that is going to be well coached in Seattle versus, again, an awful offensive line which can completely take them.
This has faded the Bengals week 1 and come back with a bet on them in week 2 all over it because we're not going to know anything about this team from week 1, especially because to put the cherry on top of what you said, Cordy Glenn also concussion protocol. They might have to throw out Andre Smith at left tackle. And it's going to be a mess. Tyler Boyd, as we know, last season without A.J. Green actually performed worse because the concerted defensive effort shifted his way. So who are we looking at the second receiver? Undrafted rookie Damian Willis, John Ross, who's proven to be unproven. It's honestly probably going to be a combination of Joe Mixon and Gio Bernard out of the backfield, and it's not going to be pretty, especially with Jadeveon Clowney lining up on that left side.
So about a year ago today, the Bears traded for Khalil Mack. Just recently, in around the same window of time, the Seattle Seahawks traded for Jadeveon Clowney. Will that have the same impact that Khalil Mack had last year for the Bears this year for the Seahawks?
Yeah, it's huge because they're still looking to replace Frank Clark, who's in Kansas City now, and this gives them that beast on the interior, and they can put him out on the defensive end as well. And it's going to be huge. I think it'll be the same impact.
It is still truly amazing. They went into the draft with like half a pick, and they came out with 8 NFL starters. It's especially given how poor the franchise is run. Like they just pay Russell Wilson and then hope for the best behind the offensive line, and they've done something this offseason. I genuinely can't believe it.
4 words: Russ, Carson, Lockett, Stack. Prosper.
All the money.
All the money. Okay, let's keep it going with the Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas 7-point home favorites. I actually don't believe the line changed. Read into that what you will, with Ezekiel Elliott now back. Jane Slater reported that they want Ezekiel Elliott to see around 20 to 25 reps. We are, translating reps into snaps, not touches. So that would leave probably another 20-25 snaps for Tony Pollard and Jameis Olawale to kind of share a little bit. Everyone drafted Zeke. I did a lot. Top 7 picks of the first round. Daigle, what are you expecting for Zeke in week 1?
So, assuming it is snaps and not touches, we're looking at the Cowboys offense that averaged around 62 plays per game last season. But they're also being brought down in volume by the slow-paced Giants, so that doesn't help either. But Zeke averaged 59 snaps per game last year in the 15 games he played. So if that is truly a 20 to 25 ratio, then we're looking at Tony Pollard getting 55-60% of the snaps, which doesn't make sense. Like, logically, I guess, but remember, you're trying to put yourself in the Cowboys' shoes, and that's not logical. Like, they just paid a running back, like they just reset the market for a running back. They're going, if he plays, if he's active, he's getting 80% of the touches with Pollard sprinkled in as a pass catcher, which is still valuable.
Yeah, I'm not buying this 20 to 25 rep report at all. Zeke's going to be out there. Maybe not for the 90% we see a lot of times, but he's going to be out there. Against a defense, by the way, once the Giants got rid of Damon Harrison last year, their rush D fell apart. I mean, they allowed 122 rushing yards per game, and that could have even been higher if a few things were different there. Really didn't add anything. They lost Olivier Vernon, and it's going to be a bad situation for New York, I think, on defense.
What do we think Kellen Moore's influence is going to be on this Cowboys defense? Is there any possibility or known that we can pluck from so far?
Biggest winner? Michael Gallup.
I agree.
He's going to ball out, especially this week. Norris Jenkins expecting him to shadow Amari Cooper. Giants have been usually giving him safety help too, so I mean, look, Gallup last year had more air yards than Calvin Ridley, more air yards than DJ Moore, even though they had several more targets than him. You know, all he needs is to connect on one of those deep balls. I know Dak hasn't been the most accurate on him in the past, but I do think Kellen Moore's system will help that.
I think Scott Pianowski said it best at the mock draft. When a rookie doesn't look like a rookie, that's a tremendous thing. And Gallup didn't look like a rookie last year.
And hopefully it adds some level of consistency to Amari Cooper, which happened when he joined the Cowboys last year as well. We haven't said one word about the Giants offense. I don't want to move on to the next game until we say that.
Do we have
I will
to?
say this, you're going to start Zeke no matter, no, excuse me, you're going to start Saquon Barkley no matter what, because he is the type that on his first 12 touches gets 30 yards, 25 yards, but then breaks that one 60 to 70 yard touchdown and will bring value no matter what.
He doesn't even need to break, though. Like, he's going to get 10 to 12 targets in this game. Like, they're going to dump off because of their offensive line. They actually have a strong offensive line, but the Cowboys pass rush should put pressure on Eli Manning, who's not mobile at all. And, like, you drafted Barkley for the targets and the loads of carries. He's going to get a lot of touches.
Only other guy you should look at, I think, is Evan Ingram. We've seen over the years when OBJ was out, it was Evan Ingram, not Sterling Shepard, that really got the target boost.
Let's next go to the 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucs are only 1-point favorites at home, 50 total between the two. You know, I guess there's optimism and excitement around this Bucs offense. Consider me skeptical, and I don't know why. I can't tell you, but I feel like it's because we know who Jameis Winston is at quarterback, and the last, few plays, games, whatever, seasons from Bruce Arians, was it all that promising? And he's not the one calling this offense. It's Byron Leftwich, who was calling the Cardinals offense last year for part of the season.
I would say this, that I don't have as much skepticism as you do.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually think this total is completely wrong. Like, I understand take, like they need the bets in Vegas, but it should be 54-55, and that's why I expect it to raise over that Jags-Chiefs total as we move along here and close as the week's highest scoring game. No one's going to stop anyone in this game. Like 1 for 6 with a pick from Garoppolo. Big deal. Like, it's still so obvious this offense is going to click, whether it be Tevin Coleman or Matt Breida in the backfield. Dante Pettis is going to be lined up there. George Kittle's going to have a monster game. We're going to get a lot of forward receiver sets, including O.J. Howard in the slot. It's going to be fireworks, and it's going to be what I think is going to be the most fun game of the weekend.
Both of these pass defenses are trash, and there's two receivers here, complimentary guys that I love in DFS this week. Marquise Goodwin and Brashad Perryman. Hear me out.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Both these guys are complete speedsters, and look, I know it's 40-yard dash times, whatever. I took the 40-yard dash time for every wide receiver in their projected cornerback matchup. Goodwin and Perryman both came in the top 7 with the biggest, pure speed advantage. And both these guys we've seen are their offense's de facto deep ball threats. I know Perryman didn't come down with any of them in the preseason. We've seen Jameis be erratic on those, but his average target depth was like 25 yards. And, even if Bruce Arians isn't calling the direct plays, you better believe he's going to be in Leftwich's ear if they go more than a couple plays without taking a shot downfield.
And to your point, though, if you read John Daigle's waiver wire column on Rotoworld, you'll see that the 49ers are actually my number 1 streaming defense because for this reason. They are going to be facing a high volume of plays, which then puts them in position to not only get sacks, but get turnovers from a turnover-prone quarterback and also, obviously, defensive scores. Like, they're such a good streaming play this week as well.
And don't get me wrong, just because I'm skeptical of the Bucs overall as a team and how many games they can win, that doesn't mean I'm skeptical of Mike Evans. Doesn't mean I'm skeptical of Chris Godwin, who's basically fulfilling that Larry Fitzgerald role, and even O.J. Howard. Like, all three can smash each and every week, and I would absolutely love it. All right, let's close out this 4 o'clock window with the Detroit Lions at the Arizona Cardinals. Detroit is actually 2.5-point road favorites against this Arizona Cardinal team. Dreadful last year, but at least, hopefully, Ian, they'll be entertaining to start this season. Even though we don't know anything. We don't know anything about this Cardinals offense.
That's true, and for that reason, I'm focused on what we do know. And what we do know is this secondary might be the worst in the league. Patrick Peterson suspended 6 games. Robert Alford's on IR. They're starting journeyman Tremaine Brock, rookie Byron Murphy, and then a bunch of undrafted rookie free agents that have been in the league but played 0 snaps last year. I mean, I feel like, we just talked about the Buccaneers hype, like kind of going with the 49ers against that hype is a good move. The same can be said for this Lions pass offense.
What's funny is that long term, this offense, the Lions offense with Matty Stafford, doesn't really have value. And this one particular week, though, the opening week where you need them, like, they have a lot of value because they will have the benefit of reaping the rewards of Cliff Kingsbury's hike and play volume. So they're actually going to have a lot more plays as well against just a cush spot.
Wow. I wasn't expecting all this Lions love.
It's
a little
1
bit.
week only. It's literally just 1 week. It's going to still be maddening, though, when Kerryon Johnson splits reps
Yes.
with C.J. Anderson and J.D. McKissick.
Did you see Chase Edmonds' comments, the backup running back for the Cardinals, where he again went on and continued this string of dialogue that the Cardinals offense has just been so vanilla this preseason that it's basically going to be like Christmas Eve the night before because they're finally going to get to show what this offense is going to look like. My expectations are way up here, and there's no way they can match them because to me, they're talking like they're going to revolutionize football, and obviously that can't happen.
I need to see like Chip Kelly game 1,
Yes.
prime time type offense.
93 snaps.
I've actually loved it because like Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk, they've all dipped David Johnson,
Yeah.
and it's insanity. Like it's the same thing. The preseason didn't matter at all for this offense. They didn't even try. Christian Kirk wasn't even on the field with the first team offense. Like
Right.
they didn't care at all. Like just buy the dip, take them all.
Let's go to Sunday Night Football. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New England Patriots. New England favored by just 5.5 at home, 51-point total in this one. Patriots, very much the same team, other than left tackle now Isaiah Wynn instead of Trip Brown. But you have Sony Michel back in the fold after that roller coaster of the offseason. Josh Gordon back in the fold after a roller coaster of an offseason. A few more players here and there, but for the Pittsburgh Steelers, it might be quite different. Again, James Conner there, Juju Smith-Schuster, but no Antonio Brown. And Ian, I'm, super interested to see how different the offense will look without AB on the field because he's been super consistent for them over the last few years.
I've been trying to figure out these 3 wide receiver sets. I was talking to Daigle about this, but I hope they put Juju in the slot and have Moncrief from Washington on the outside. That seems like the most
Do you
firepower.
think that
to me.
will happen?
I don't.
Neither do I.
Look, Graham Barfield did a great job tracking this. Ben Roethlisberger played 20 plays in the 3rd preseason game. Moncrief had 19 snaps. Juju had 18. Ryan Switzer had 13. Eli freaking Rogers had 6.
Yeah.
James Washington had 2.
Right. So most likely that makes us believe that it'll be Juju and Moncrief on the outside with some Ryan Switzer, Eli Rogers in the slot.
I think Juju's in store for a career high rate in slot routes.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of really how often does that translate to James Washington getting on the field, especially because all of Washington's production, pretty much all of it, came from Mason Rudolph, not from Roethlisberger. So that's certainly a concern. I am, though, on the other side of the ball, I am actually excited to watch Devin Bush. Is it
Yes.
Devin? Okay, I get my Devin Bush and my Devin White confused sometimes.
You got it correct.
Devin Bush and Vince Williams. I think that's pretty exciting for this matchup, especially attempting to stuff Sonny Michel on his inevitable 20 carries in this game. So it's going to be interesting.
That means 7 touchdowns for Sony Michel as well this Sunday.
Perhaps. And he looked so good. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I was wrong.
Thank you.
I was wrong all
appreciate it.
offseason. Yeah.
We'll just move on from that since we'll leave it there.
It's
Cut
true.
that, everyone. Cut that. All right, let's keep it going with 2 Monday Night Football contests. Always so much fun to have that second Monday Night Football game, but we'll start with the first one. That is the Houston Texans away at the New Orleans Saints. Saints are 7-point favorites, 53.5 total. We know that the Houston Texans finally traded for left tackle. Cost them 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick as well. To me, from the outside, it looks like Bill O'Brien, who is now in charge of everything, complete dictator, is able and is willing to invest everything in this offensive line. And I think the Texans defense might be a major blind spot this season.
No, that's a good point. And in this matchup, that's a nightmare against this
Total
offensive line.
nightmare.
And this, look, I was looking at the pressure rates just on defensive lines versus offensive lines. And yeah, the Saints, Drew Brees should have as long as he wants to sit back in the pocket this entire game. I'm just wondering who's going to emerge as his third option in the Saints offense. We know Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara are going to be involved. But I'm curious to see if it's going to be Jared Cook, if Latavius Murray is going to be more involved, or if maybe Traquan Smith takes a year or 2 leap.
I would love Traquan Smith to be on the field more, but I genuinely think it's going to be Keith Kirkwood. If they're going to stick with that method in the slot. I know, trust me, I know, but this is how they run their offense. Ted Ginn on the outside,
Okay.
Keith Kirkwood in the slot. For some reason, they refused.
Austin Carr gets no love? What's the deal with you?
Keith Kirkwood did run over Austin.
kidding, I'm
They had
kidding.
the same options last season, and they refused to use them. So I don't
Okay.
see what's changed since then. On the other side of the ball, though, the Texans, for as bad as their defense is, it only helps and propels Deshaun Watson in this
sure.
offense. Any question marks you have about whether it be pass protection, even though they've upgraded their offensive line, their defense, now they have what is primarily a pass-catching back in the backfield with Duke Johnson. All of this just continues to slowly heighten Deshaun Watson, perhaps to Mahomes' level, perhaps slightly above him. But it's going to be a shootout that the Saints no doubt in my mind, will win at home.
Yeah.
But like it's going to be explosion everywhere.
And just on paper, it is admirable that they recognized how much of an issue left tackle was and they fixed it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But now they have to win. Like they have to win because they sacrificed future draft picks, for multiple years. But it did make sense. Like the signs kind of point in this direction after taking a tackle in round 1 who really had never played guard and moving him to guard immediately in Titus Howard. I'm very excited for the offense. Will Fuller, especially 11 touchdowns in 16 games played with Deshaun Watson. I just hope everyone stays healthy and that the Texans defense isn't too much of a liability because that secondary is woeful.
Titus Howard was small school, correct?
Alabama State.
Yeah.
Alabama
that's
State.
concerning.
All right, let's close it out with the Denver Broncos at the Oakland Raiders. It's a pick'em game, 43-point total. I know, Ian, you're going to stay up for this one. What are you excited about? Broncos, Joe Flacco at the helm, Oakland Raiders, Antonio Brown in the fold, along with John Gruden and Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs, so on and so forth.
I think we're going to see the Broncos defense get back to being one of the league's very best units. Bradley Chubb fulfilled every expectation last season. If the team wasn't so bad, I think he would have gotten a lot more hype. But 12 sacks as a rookie, I mean, the company that puts him in is really ridiculous. Von Miller is still obviously the same beast we've seen over the years. Now we got Vic Fangio, talking about him earlier, just the things he can do. I mean, Chris Harris was just talking to the media about how now he's not going to be chasing guys all over the place. Feels like he's got more chances at interceptions. A little bit banged up at linebacker with Todd Davis, but I mean, good luck moving the ball, Derek.
Also, it's going to be confusing when the Broncos have a good offensive performance because they probably won't the rest of the season. But like the Raiders did nothing defensively to help themselves. Like sure, they added rookies in the first round, but outside of Abrams, like I don't know how you get better in rushing the passer since they were just by far and away the worst last year. And oddly enough, Joe Flacco as well was second to only Patrick Mahomes and passes 20-plus yards downfield before he got benched. So Cortland Sutton also has sneaky fantasy value here. Like so much so that he's a sneaky flex option right out the gates.
All right, guys, we did it. 16 games in week 1. Thanks so much. We'll be back actually tomorrow, again, with Nick Menzio and Roto Pat, talk about rankings, start sits, all that good stuff. Again, if you enjoy this podcast at any moment, what do we do, Daigle? We tell one friend.
We tell one friend.
Tell one friend. Leave us a rating and review. So hit that subscribe button as well. And again, Sunday show. Be sure to tune in. NBC Sports' YouTube page, noon Eastern, helping you set your optimal lineup. Talk to y'all soon. See ya.